Welcome, Wargamers, to the blood-soaked altars of the Mortal Realms, because today we are talking all about the Daughters of Khaine, specifically why they still have allies. This is a question that's been asked me multiple times by friends, folks I was meeting at the most recent event that I was at. It's just a question that's burning in a lot of people's minds. And we are going to be addressing that in full, bringing you up to date with the lore that's come in the newest battle tome for the Daughters of Khaine, and then we'll go into a deeper dive into the faction itself later on. I'm very excited to dive into the Daughters of Khaine with fresh eyes because so much has changed since their last battle tome, meaning specifically the events of the Broken Realm series. Now I'll add one thing right up top. If you like this video and you're interested in this faction, please consider using the affiliate link in the description down below. Noble Knight Games is a fantastic store here in the US with discounts on all Games Workshop products, and using that link goes an immensely long way to supporting me, my wife, my cat, this channel, all of it. It's life-changing stuff, and I appreciate everyone who has up till now. Now, for those of you who are new to Age of Sigmar, or you're wondering why allies are really in question here, really it comes down to two things. One, the Daughters of Khaine have always kind of had, we'll say, bad press, and then also the events of Broken Realms. So to put the first one up there, these are very non-team friendly ladies, shall we say, that they are part of the greater pantheon of order. Of course, they are the remnants of elves from the old world who moved over, and then Morathi herself has created and crafted her own beings. These are the Melusai and the Caneri. They don't really play well with others. They tend to isolate themselves. They're very secretive about their practices. They hide any kind of mutations that they have. So like the Caneri and the Melusai are kind of on the down low a little bit in the curtain. When they actually do join other allies, like let's say a Cities of Sigmar contingent on the battlefield, they're terrifying. Like all of the city's people are like, I don't want to go anywhere near these women, because not only are they rude and super aggressive and off the battlefield, but when they're on the battlefield, I mean they're like drinking blood, they're like taking showers in it, they're dumping as much as they can into their cauldrons, and they're just whipping around the battlefield, and it looks like madness, just absolute madness, but in fact it is quite highly choreographed martial arts, so they can just jump in with either a whip or some daggers, whatever the weapon is irrelevant, and just start hacking and slashing. Each Daughter of Khaine is a one-woman blender. And so, with Morathi kind of being a character who's based around subterfuge and lies, it kind of, was really a thorn in people's sides of like, well, why are they order, right? Why would my faction work with them? And for the longest time, the only answer we've ever gotten has been, well, it's the lesser of two evils, right? I mean, they're against chaos, and if they're willing to help me now, I'll accept the help, and we'll just try to figure out the rest later on the road. Kind of kicking that can of how different your values and stuff are. Because right now, in the moment, it's all hands on deck versus chaos. So that's all stuff that's been established. I mean, we've been having those same questions and debates from the beginning when this faction was first launched, but if you missed the most recent campaign series, The Broken Realms, you'll know that Morathi caused quite a stir there. She went full Yas Snake Queen and kind of strained some relationships. So first off, she stole a very valuable item from the Idoneth Deepkin. She tricked Sigmar into a trap where hundreds of Stormcast Eternals got killed permanently. I mean, because they went into the 8 points and their souls were sucked up by Archaon's minions in this weird cloud he was making. Like, she got a lot of heroes permadead. She betrayed the allies that were personally with her, like she had her own little entourage of Stormcast, betrayed all of them, stole a whole bunch of Veronite, which is the realm stone of the 8 points, and used it in a grand ritual to become a god. She then, pretty much immediately after that, goes and attacks the city of Anvilgard from the Cities of Sigmar, takes it very swiftly, and renames it as Har Curon, a new Daughters of Khaine-centric city. So as I said before, not really a team player. She betrayed most of the pantheon on some level, right? I think the only people she didn't directly give the finger to were like dwarves. And so you can imagine when the newest Daughters of Khaine book dropped and people saw that they could still ally with, Cities of Sigmar, Lumineth Realm Lords, Deepkin, Stormcast Eternals, all of that, there's a lot of confusion. How could she do all of these things to people and still ally with them in a game sense? Like, that dissonance just got greater and greater the more big actions she was making in the Broken Realm series. Because, there's a difference between, they don't seem friendly, but they're kind of on our side, to outright betrayal. And so let's kind of break this up and have a discussion. This is somewhat based on the new lore that we've gotten from the Battle Tome, and then just a few thoughts that I have relative to where the setting is at the moment. The first point I want to bring up is that Sigmar has other issues. Right at the end of the Broken Realms campaign, Excelcis is also under attack in a major way. So this means that 2 major bastions of order are under threat and in need of reinforcements. But here's the thing. The battle for Anvilgard at the point where Excelcis is under attack is over. The way in which Morathi took the city was very deceptive and very silent. She basically didn't kill any Stormcast, but subdued and kind of locked them in place so that no one could arc back to Azir and warn anyone. So it all happened really subtly, and so by the time he understands, he being Sigmar, what's going on, it's functionally over. So even though there's 2 bastions of order that are under threat, one of them, the fight is kind of done. So why send an army there when he can send forces to a city that, their fate has not yet been decided, meaning Excelcis? So that's kind of one minor point here. Keep in mind, at the same time, Morathi does, in fact, come in and help the Pantheon defend Excelcis in the last book. She's weaving all the way through the city like a madwoman, taking out orcs left and right. So even though she takes what she wants, she isn't above a bit of teamwork, for the betterment of the group to kind of smooth things over. And this is kind of where I kind of posit my own thoughts here, is that if I'm Sigmar and I'm looking at these options, it makes a good deal of sense to say, you know what, fine. You hold on to Anvilgard. We'll circle back to that later whenever this beast crisis in Gur is over. Because Morathi's not going to let the city fall apart, right? I mean, it's in her hands, would be just as safe as his for the most part, realistically. And so if Morathi is willing to play ball and, help order where it's needed, just let her have it for now, and we can revisit this later. It's not the same as letting a chaos, force take the city where it's going to be gradually increasing pain and suffering and chaotic energy and all these kinds of things. Nothing like that. She's still a part of order. It's just she took something that she didn't have a right to, at least in everyone else's minds. And so if you're Sigmar, I'm not going to throw forces at this. She's already taken it, and she's not going to let it fall to chaos on her own will. She's at least going to fight to keep it going, otherwise she would have done all this for nothing, so it's not in an immediate danger like, say, Excelcis was. Now, at the end of the Broken Realm series, we see the Celestant Prime come down, and he actually acts as the kind of representative, the voice of Sigmar himself, and he sits and he talks with Morathi, and they kind of hash out all these details. They almost get into a fist fight until Grugni actually stops them. But they kind of come to some sort of agreement. Part of this agreement is based on Morathi agreeing that the Daughters of Khaine will redouble their efforts to support order, specifically in Gur, but all across everywhere. And I assume this is why they can ally with most things. I mean, they're basically offering their services almost as mercenaries, but also as pilgrims, because again, every crusade is a religious one in their mind. So they're offering their services even more widely than they were before. And lore-wise, this really plays out in Sigmar's favor on the surface. Morathi keeps Anvilgard, of course now it's Harkuron, she keeps it safe, and in the promise of military aid, Sigmar can now deplete her forces by sending them out and abroad. Again, put a pin in that city, we'll circle back to it later once the immediate crisis is over. In the meantime, sure, send out all your Daughters of Khaine, all your witch elves, all your Sisters of Slaughter to fight my battles and get themselves killed, because it's only going to make retaking the city, at least if you're Sigmar's side, easier in the end, from his perspective. And so that's the balance that has been struck. Morathi keeps the city, but she has promised reinforcements to basically everywhere. And so if you're Sigmar, I think it's quite reasonable to sit back and say, okay, yeah, I'll use your forces, I'll bleed you out dry, and then I'll come and I'll take this city back later on. They haven't shown us like a short story or an interaction story where all the deities are talking to Morathi yet. I think that's one thing we really need in order to get the last piece of this puzzle. Black Library, if you're listening, give us a story where the gods are talking to Morathi, because up until now, they have always been superior and she has hated them for that. Even though she's kind of on a mild When she first was introduced to the setting, she was on a mild god tier level, but she herself was not deity. Now she is. So what does that social dynamic look like? Is Sigmar still being dismissive, like we'll circle around, we'll put her in her place kind of a deal? Or is he treating her like an equal? Those things do matter. Now, I do have one more point here regarding the Idoneth Deepkin and the Lumineth. For the Deepkin themselves, their arrangement didn't end poorly, and I don't really quite understand why folks were like, well, why would the Deepkin work with her? Morathi returned the artifact she stole once she attained Godhood. She didn't destroy it. She didn't permanently want to keep it. She not only gave them back the thing that she stole, she then proceeded to pay them in a whole bunch of souls, which is the single most valuable rare resource that she has and they need. If they can get this resource at the cost of only a little bit of mercenary work from a source that's already proven reliable, meaning she has them on hand, why would they be enemies? Because, like, if Morathi, quote-unquote, hires them to go destroy a force, okay, well, they take a raiding party, they get the souls for doing that, they come back to Morathi, and their payment is more souls. They're making money on top of money, or souls on top of souls. You can see how, for a Deepkin, this is an arrangement that is nothing but profits. So, I don't know, I guess I kind of look at that as like, well, why would they be enemies? I would work for her if that was my prerogative, was just getting souls. And for the Lumineth, I'm just going to level with y'all. I don't have a friggin' clue. Like, they as a faction were written so oddly that I feel both simultaneously like, oh, they're benevolent and should be willing to work with anyone, which would explain why they're in this book, but also that they are haughty, arrogant, and think they're better than anybody else and don't like anyone else. So it's just kind of this duality that exists. Lumineth have been a consistently tricky one for me to understand the motivations, because it seems so setting-centric rather than like character-centric, meaning they're not necessarily like, they're opposed to chaos, of course they are, but their internal mission seems much more about healing the realms, which, I mean, realistically could mean a lot of different things, but it doesn't have a direct impact on any other faction. So this is the one where I have to just shrug and be like, elves be crazy. That's all I got. Because I know Teclis doesn't like her, meaning Morathi. I know they don't play well together in terms of the Lumineth don't really play well with anyone else because they think they're better than them. The Daughters of Khaine they also think they're better than them because they're elves, but they also don't because they murder everyone who's around them. So there's just like not a lot of explanation there, and I'm waiting for their story to explain it to me. If you know of one, like there are short stories they crank out that slip by me all the time. If there's one that you know of a Daughters of Khaine and a Lumineth interacting, please let me know. It probably just went past me, but I've yet to see like a good, meaningful interaction between these armies to explain why they would high five. But I want to end this video like I end all my videos, just talking about why is this so cool? Well, after the epic events of the Broken Realms series, I was surprised that so many folks thought that Daughters of Khaine would like be shunned by Order. Like there was talk about, oh, put them in Chaos. I don't think that they belong there. Yeah, Morathi took what she wanted, but she also helped others once her desires were met. The second she attained Godhood and got her city as her stake in the claim, she immediately went out and helped Excelcis. Which is one of those things like, yeah, those things are not equal. It's not like one good neutralizes one bad, but it shows you that she is still willing to play ball provided that she gets what she wants. Which is selfish, but not evil in the Warhammer sense. And like tactically speaking, this still leaves the Daughters of Khaine in the same position they were in before. They hate chaos. They're only allies of convenience. They were at no point ever nice or sweet. It's just that Morathi wanted to assert some dominance with her new power, but the math of how they interact with other factions hasn't changed drastically. Chaos is bad, and anyone willing to work together for the removal of chaos is an ally at least, a friend at best. Provided you're not trying to kill everyone equally like Nagash. And what I think this demonstrates is just how fractious the forces of Order are. I think the Daughters of Khaine have most of these allies is just totally justified. The one exception, of course, I don't really understand, as I said before, is Lumineth. But being an ally in the game sense is not the same as saying friendly. They don't like each other. None of these factions like each other. The only ones who seem to be able to work together, I'm going to go ahead and say, are the Kharadron Overlords, because they have a nice concrete system of how to work together, and the Cities of Sigmar because they figured out how to do it by necessity. But like, nobody else seems super stoked to work with each other. And in a setting that's defined by the lesser of thousands of evils, the Daughters of Khaine still don't rate high as bad neighbors in my opinion. You know, in terms of like your pantheon of order. I mean, I'd certainly, if I was Sigmar, I'd want them on my side as opposed to against me. That's for sure. And so if Morathi is willing to play ball in some capacity, you can let a lot of things slide. But friends, that is just my opinion. I would love to hear yours. What do you think about Daughters of Khaine having allies? I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts. Like I said, if you know something that, of an interaction between them and the Lumineth, that's I haven't read all the short stories in their battle tome yet. Maybe there's one there. But if you know of one, let me know in the description down below or the comments down below, as well as, you know, what you think about their allies with other cities as well. Thank you all so much for watching, listening, and commenting. Click subscribe if you haven't, and I will catch you in my next Age of Sigmar lore video. Happy wargaming.